Nina, is your arm getting better?
No. It's so difficult to realize it's only one moment of vipaka, but really deep in our mind, as Alan would say, it seems to stay, but it doesn't stay. I know it's really difficult.
What was wrong with your arm, Nina?
No, not good. I have a lot
Oh,
of.
that's right. You had a fall.
มันมีช่องเสียบใช่ไหมคะคุณเอ็ม
I think.
So I hope you're getting better.
ใช่ครับท่านอาจารย์ครับมีช่องเสียบ
But I'm glad to be here.
ครับคือเสียบท่านอาจารย์มีสายน่าจะมีสายนะครับนี่ครับแล้วก็เสียบกับช่องที่มันเป็นสี่เหลี่ยมแบนๆนะสี่เหลี่ยมแบนๆ
แต่ก็ใช้ได้เลยเนาะ
ใช่ครับครับพร้อมไหมครับท่านอาจารย์ครับ
เดี๋ยวกำลังเสียบมันเสียบได้เพราะเห็นนะเดี๋ยวนะทำไมมันไม่เข้ามันจะหักเอา
อ๋อมันมี2ด้านแต่สายต้องเป็นสายของมันนะครับอาจารย์ครับสาย
มันเล็กสายอันเล็กของมันเนี่ยฮะ
ครับสายที่มัน
ยากเนาะเดี๋ยวก่อน
คือมันมี2ด้านฮะ
มี2ด้านลองแล้วทั้ง2ด้าน
อ๋
อยังไงล่ะไว้เดี๋ยวเราใช้อีกเครื่องใช้เล่นได้ใช่ไหมคะ
iPad เหรอครับเดี๋ยวใช้ iPhone ก่อนถ้าเกิดว่าแบตหมดจริงๆเดี๋ยวผมโทรไป iPad ก็ได้ครับ
รู้ได้ยังไงว่า iPhone มันหมด
ก็เดี๋ยวสัญญาณหายขาดไปเลยอะไรเงี้ยครับเครื่องดับไปเลย
มันดูนิดนึงนะขอดูว่ามันเหลือแบตเตอรี่เท่าไหร่นะฮะ
ครับ
เหลือ 45% ไหวไหม
ลองดูครับอาจารย์
โอเคค่ะขอบคุณ
ครับโอเคครับ
เดี๋ยวยังหามันไม่เจอโทรใหม่สิฮะ
ฮัลโหลครับ
ค่ะครับเดี๋ยวค่ะได้แล้ว
ครับผม
ได้แล้วค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ
ครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ
อาจารย์
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
Nina and I were just discussing how when not discussing Dhamma, how there's forgetfulness most of the time, always lost in the world of oneself and one's body and one's activities and problems. So lots and lots of forgetting, but good to know. And anything else you would like to add, Nina?
Yes, I was listening to concepts and the step from pariyatti or understanding realities, and then nimitta, and then the step from nimitta to concept, and I did not quite find it, I didn't quite get it. And also Ajahn was stressing, seeing is very subtle, hearing is very subtle. And it would be useful if Ajahn could explain more about the meaning of that. Why is seeing so subtle? Why is hearing so subtle?
Because you see that even we have heard about the word nama, that which can experience, that's only the idea or thought about the truth that it is now. Experiences, which means sees, knows what is there. See? While there is seeing, there must be something as object. That's why we have heard about this. But at this very moment, no understanding of seeing as just that which arises to experience only, because there is not just seeing, there is that which is seen too. So when there is not enough understanding of the distinction between the two, because of no direct awareness, because of not enough intellectual understanding to conditioned moment of beginning to understand at the moment when there is seeing. Firstly, there can be thinking about it. Thinking is conditioned to think about that, but it's thinking, not that which beginning to understand the characteristic which experiences. That's why it needs patience, khanti, to know that nothing can make that arise, the understanding, direct understanding of that which experiences. But as long as there is still the idea of it experiences, or now it sees, it, which means it experiences little by little, so very little. And then when time comes, when the conditions are ripe, ready, it is as sudden as seeing now, it is conditioned to arise unexpectedly all the time, to have more confidence of the truth of nothing, the world, when there's nothing arises, nothing there at all. And that is only the idea now. Nothing is there when there's nothing arise. But the truth is that now seeing has a reason. So there is seeing. Before seeing, there is no seeing. So understand the nature of that which now arises and performs its function differently, different reality from moment to moment. Begin to learn the truth of it, to let go the idea of self, of thing, from the five khandas. And this is not yet any khanda. Even the rupa does not appear as it is, as that which impinge on that. I talk about this with the Indian this morning about that very, very, very tiny ant, but still it has all five khandas. See, so the seeing pasatrupa, the seeing rupa, pasatrupa, must be so very tiny comparing to the tiny of the ant, which is so very tiny. Even that is the same as now. No matter it's here or there or in heaven or wherever, whatever is there must be so very tiny, but it has a reason and falls away instantly. Who knows? Only the enlightened one who understands the truth of whatever we are talking about. It seems like the world full of things, but actually only that which is as it is conditioned to arise, performs its function and fall away all the time, instantly. That's why if that is not experienced, how can there be letting go, the idea of something so big with shape and form? So when there is the understanding of reality as it is, each one, the rupa, each one is very tiny, and the nama has no shape and form at all, but it is that which now sees, hears, thinks, like or dislike, different from that which cannot experience at all, little by little. And this is the understanding, not the word, of that which is now. Buddha had enlightened the truth. And if that hasn't been enlightened, how can there be the let go of the world full of many things? But actually, when there's nothing arise, there cannot be any world at all. Just understand. Only that. And understand performs its function. All Sankhara-Dhamma, Cetasika, perform their function. No one there at all. Now, right now. But nothing appears as this is Phassa, or this is Vedana, this is Sanya. But they are all there. And Panya learn to know that there are so many realities now, even in a moment of Chitta. By then, it can appear to Panya when it's there. When it's there, at that very moment which appears, little by little, unexpectedly. And this is the world, that when it's enlightened, it has to be like that, nothing at all. And that which is the only one reality is the object is there, and the experiencing is there, and they are different. One by one appear as it is. So the seeing is dark, but the object which is seen is light. Or even its darkness, it can be seen when one is not blind. One can tell when it's dark and when it's not dark. The truth is all there, any moment, every moment, but it depends on understanding and considering the truth of that which is now heard from the teachings of the Buddha to see the world as it is. Very, very fragile, very, very tiny, just arise and falls away in split seconds. Only Panya can realize that. It can penetrate the truth, which is so close now. Here, it's there, so close. But to penetrate it is so very deep.
I heard your explanation about concepts, and I always find it difficult to step from nimitta to concept.
Okay, if you don't think about the word concept at all, is there any reality? And whatever is real, it has its characteristic, and its characteristic appears as it is. For example, the whole body from head to toe does not appear at all now while there is seeing. See? And when there is hearing, the whole body from head to toe does not appear. It appears only when there is touching. And there can be touching the body from head to toe at once. It's just only there, only there. And when it appears, so many moments of arising and falling away that it can appear. Comparing to the dust, how little it is. See, but we can see when it's different, a little more tiny or a little more bigger, or that which even almost cannot be seen, and more than that. See, it's there. Depending on the divine eyes of whatever is there can experience that. But the truth is that what is seen is only that which can impinge on the tiny eye base. The no nimitta of things, but when there's no understanding, the succession of the arising and falling away so very quickly performs something there, even that's so very tiny. What's that? It's a tiny atom or whatever word we use, particle or whatever. Anyway, any word, see? And that is the nimitta of a reality. For example, seeing right now is not hearing, but it's not a moment of seeing at all. There are so many, many moments of seeing as usual that it's not known, arising and falling away. So there can be the understanding of the nimitta of seeing, see. But it is the nimitta of reality. The seeing is real and it's there, but the arising and falling away is not penetrated yet. That's why Panya has to let go, and so Panya develops more because it can apply to any moment in life, no doubt about it. So it's so sharp to let go, no matter what in a day, with Panya or without Panya, with what level of akusa, it doesn't matter at all. When it is Panya, but when it's not Panya, it's something that so matter that one just take it for serious. A serious thing or a moment. That's why let's talk about reality. If nothing arises at all, there cannot be nimitta. We begin from nimitta. We begin from reality because there is the arising and falling away of a reality so very, very rapidly. That's why what can appear according to the procession of Citta and Cetasika, as we have learned, we know that only one moment of seeing cannot be the object of understanding. There must be many processes, and that is the nimitta of seeing. The same as nimitta to whatever which appears. That's why in Tipitaka there are the words rupa nimitta, vedana nimitta, sanya nimitta, sankhara nimitta, and vijnana nimitta. Everything appears as nimitta, because only one cannot be the object of understanding at all. There must be reality, and when it appears as the nimitta of a reality. For example, hardness at moment of touching, not just that very, very tiny, more than a dust. See, it's the object of that which impinge on the body base. But it appears as something hard, or if you don't use the word something, it's hard. Hard is there. But what is hard? Composed with many, many units or many, many tiny rupa. That is the nimitta of hardness. So everything appears as nimitta. And when it makes known as something, it is panyati. That's all. When there's no nimitta, there cannot be panyati. When there's no reality, there cannot be nimitta. So we live in the world of nimitta, we live in the world of panyati, when there are realities arising and falling away, unknown. Is it clear enough?
It's not easy, the subject.
But there can be the understanding of the reality, like nama, no shape, no form. But it's that which experiences a quality of a nature which is conditioned by many conditions, sampayutta pacaya, sahasata pacaya, to arise, to be such and such different moment of experiencing. No one there at all. This is the beginning to let go the idea of self, when there is the understanding of that is not self. Seeing, its conditioned to arise. Without its proper condition, it cannot arise. Like other reality, no matter it is the rupa or the nama, there must be conditions for its arising to be only just that. By conditions, according to conditions. And if we don't think about the word, it's there. There must be reality, but the arising and falling away cannot be known. Only the Buddha has enlightened, and he taught us to understand the truth. And it is the moment when Panya can develop to the degree that it can directly experience the truth, stage by stage, clearer and clearer. In Tipitaka, it talks about the characteristic of Panya, or right understanding, because there must be so many fine details about Panya. For example, anyone who talks about anything that we can say, is it right? Mathematics, or science, or medical, or cooking, to put this before that and after that, as little or as much. See, is it right? When it's right and someone say that it's right, it's correct way. It's that panya, not panya at all. See? Because panya has to be that which understands the truth as it is only. So, as that cannot be panya, what about the intellectual understanding, talking, thinking about nama and rupa, only the word? Not enough. It has to be considered again and again and begin to understand that which is now appearing, that it experiences. Otherwise, that cannot be that which experienced at all. For example, sound. If there is no experiencing sound, such that particular one, how can that particular one appear? From considering the truth, it's not the moment when it begins to understand the characteristic which is of self. It's just like the seed. Who knows when it does not grow up? Little by little, the panya begins to grow from the seed, intellectual understanding. But it does not perform the function of panya enough as when it is direct understanding.
So we listen to you and then we consider. But as you say, we have to consider again and again. It's not enough, just a few moments.
Because it's still you or me or anyone, see? But when it's just begin to let go, life is so very short, nothing there at all, if nothing arises. The world, there's no world when there's nothing arises. But whatever arises, it is a world. And that which is not seen is conditioned to arise. But it cannot be known, it cannot be studied. That's only that which is there. Show up as it is, as something, but not the truth yet. Until the enlightened one develop Panya Barami and other Barami enough to condition the moment of enlightenment for everyone by conditions to be different levels of understanding as Samma Sambuddho or Pacceka Buddho or Savaka Buddho. But it needs time to develop just to understand. And there must be many, many things now which has to be object of direct understanding. What about Sanya now? That which remembers what is there, while looking, seeing, is there, remembering a reality. And when it's there, it is the nimitta of that reality, because it's not only one, which is much more than we can say tiniest one. Very, very short one. This is the world, arising and falling away, no, not permanent at all, no one there. There's nothing, only ignorance, which takes it for something so very important in life, that's all. With ignorance, on and on and on, until there is the words of considering about it, to begin to understand truth, little by little. So little, but better than none. That's why we understand how much ignorance is there in a day, in life, from life to life, that it needs the understanding of the truth, little by little, to begin to have more confidence of no me, no thing, no one at all. Only the conditioned reality appears as nimitta and is known as pandati, what is what. Without nimitta, there cannot be such. Make it known as something. So it is sanya which makes known. What is that? From memory of the shape and form of the sound, high or low, of the hardness, soft or hard, temperature, heat or cold. Begin to see the world as not more, only a moment. All gone. No me after death. Before the moment of birth, no me. But when there's birth, it's me. What about last life? What about next life? No me, this life at all. Completely gone. But it actually completely gone from moment to moment.
Ajahn, you were saying that life is just a momentary, and that's true. But life, if it's just single moment, it does not appear, right? Because it's too short. One cannot appear.
It's there, but can you experience that which arises and falls away in split second and so very tiny?
No.
But see the tiny ant, it is tiny, but it can be seen. But that is much more than that. Because the tiny ant has 5 senses and rupa and nama, cetasika as well. So the point is that understanding it. Is it right? Is it true? Is it that? So we can understand that actually what appears is like the magician who can play tricks. Unbelievable. And the truth of Chitta, Cetasik, Rupa is much more than that, because the magician doesn't have any understanding of the truth at all. And we begin to understand the virtues of the Buddha, how great it is to explain and to have the other to share the understanding, so whoever listen carefully and think about the truth, which can be developed from not understanding anything which appears now until it's some understanding, some truth, and a little more confident of nothing, and then something arises. Otherwise, there cannot be that level of vipassana jnana to experience the nimitta of the arising and falling away of a reality. Just have more confidence of the truth that this moment so short is gone. Be delighted to understand the truth for each one, for everything, not permanent, only show up and then gone like a dream. That's why we understand what's meant by wake up from ignorance. Not fully waking up yet. That's why if you don't have discussion, and if you don't read the teachings, if there's no thought about that at all, how can there be more understanding of the truth? Even it's there as it's heard from the very beginning. Never change. The truth must be the absolute truth. And it is the Ariya Satya Dhamma. It is now the path leading to moment of direct experiencing and enlighten the truth one day. Who knows when, but there are conditions, like the seed is implanted. What is there to become the leaf, the stalk, the branch, little by little? The understanding can spread over everything which is now covered up. So it's just the understanding only. The point of listening is to understand the truth. That's all. And understanding itself works its way. No one can do that. No one can perform that function at all. Because actually there are only different dhammas. Phassa just contact. It cannot understand. If there's no understanding of Paramadadhamma, the absolute truth, there cannot be understanding to understand what is nimitta or panyati. Don't know that it's panyati only. Think that it's so permanent, so real. But actually, it's not that anymore. That's
I think, like you said. Sorry, Ajahn. Please carry on. I was just going to say, I think, like you said at the end, that people get confused by the words, the terms like nimitta, but we can, or concept panyati, but any words can be used. But like the analogy you gave of the speck of dust is a good one. One speck of dust can't be seen, but if there is enough dust, there is an impression and thinking about the dust in the room. And in the same way, like just now, there was some drilling noise outside our window, just one sound that is heard. Nothing is known or thought about it. But if there are many, many moments of experiencing that sound, there is an impression of it. And because of memory, there is thinking about the kind of sound, the sound of the drilling, the sound of the work outside the window. But it's actually just thinking, just lost in the tricks of the magician, because it's only sound that's heard now. But without that sound, there wouldn't be without the many, many sounds being heard like that, there wouldn't be that impression, and there wouldn't be the memory and thinking about that kind of sound.
But one moment, because Dhamma is so far, like just in this much million chitta has already arisen and fallen. So it seems like when Dhamma arises and fallen so fast, it's appear with the nimitta. So that's why, because it's so fast, one cannot be known. One at one moment, like for example, seeing one moment, it does not appear, but what appears is because repetitive of seeing, and then we know that it's seeing.
This is the long story about nimitta and concepts, but at this very moment, that characteristic of sound is just sound that is heard at this moment. And like when Nina spoke at the beginning about the painful feeling that seems to stay or last or be in my body, but actually there are countless moments of painful feeling with so many other experiences in between. But because there are many moments, there is that impression and the thinking about that particular pain in my body because of that memory. But it's actually just painful feeling that experiences, and just hardness that is experienced at that moment.
Yeah, like everyone also, because Dhamma is arising so fall and fast and all that, and nimitta seems like appear with the Dhamma. So everyone, actually no one can escape from the world of nimitta, whether it's us or Buddha or anyone.
And the fact is that even though a single moment of seeing cannot be known, the characteristic of seeing can be known, even though it appears as continuous because of the nimitta factor, shall we say. The nimitta effect, it appears that seeing lasts for several moments, but if there is awareness and seeing as object, the characteristic of that moment of that particular Dhamma can be known. A single moment of it cannot. So that's the important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, understand. That is what you're trying to say. I understand. It's a sign of reality, like seeing. There's like many, we have to look in which term we're using. Nimitta, which mean in concept, that is nimit and anupenshana. But when we say sankhara nimit, it means the sign of that actual reality.
The main point is that it's now, it's just now, no matter what word, because when there is the experiencing of the impression of the reality or the sign of the reality, no thought about the word or the term, but it's just the visible object that's seen, and instantly there's thinking about what kind of visible object it is, the red one or the green one or the black one, but it's now to be understood just as it is. And I think, Nina, when there's concern about how it's all forgotten and so quickly there's the idea of my painful arm and my back problem and so on, but this is just natural. Dhamma, it has to be like that. It's just thinking about one's arm, one's pain, one's body. So if there's any idea it shouldn't be like that, that's also reality that can be known. It's just more thinking because it has to be like that.
Yes. Then is forget about the anatta, that is uncontrollable, no one. Then is forget if even a little bit of idea behind it can do something, then in that moment they don't understand Dhamma.
And it's also now taking it for my arm, my body, but no, it's just natural that it has to be like that because the ignorance and wrong understanding has been accumulated for so long. So it can be understood as it is too, because it's also another passing Dhamma, just the moment of thinking like that, or ignorance now.
Nina, I think you want to say something, maybe.
No, I have said it already. That is difficult and that we have to hear a lot and consider again and again. But the considering again and again is, well, we are forgetful, you know. So we don't consider again and again. We listen now, but then we forget.
Yeah, I liked your reaction when you said it's difficult, because that's what it is.
Right, yeah.
I mean, again, no selection of having awareness. Like one can try to have more awareness. We have put
No.
so it's natural to forgetful.
It's not my difficulty, not my problem. It's just ignorance and ditthi that have been accumulated, but it's not my difficulty or my misunderstanding.
It's good to hear.
It's not my understanding.
All those reminders. I find it really helpful.
Otherwise, we cannot have any knowledge of the panya of the Buddha at all, how great it is to realize the truth much more than we can expect. What we heard is just from some of his understanding, his knowledge, not all yet. Impossible to understand the truth as he understood or enlightened. But we begin to see, to understand the virtues of that person, that one, the Buddha. And we can develop understanding from begin to not forget about the truth, read more or discuss or whatever, think over it, consider it, how much ignorance is there from moment to moment. Even right now, no understanding of sanya, which now arises each moment, and feeling and sankhara, and even the vijnana, which now experiences, even it now experiences is not known as it is. It needs more understanding, little by little, and that is a development of understanding, to let go ignorance and not think about it at all as that which now experiences. So it has its own way, not under anyone's control, just by conditions.
Ann Lee, I don't know if you can hear me. At the end of the last session, you brought up the topic of people who practice concentration and so on, and it was a little bit quick at the end. Was there anything more you wish to discuss about this topic?
Thank you, sir. Yes, last time I mentioned some people practice. I find it it's easy to get they want to have concentration, and it's what they get, the strong concentration, and it's very easy to achieve. But that's all. Yes.
So is there any practice in the Buddha's teachings, and what is practice?
So far, yes, as we discussed several times, there's no practice. Yes, mostly it's all the sutta, it's and descriptions of the development. It's a natural development, so there's no particular practice at all. That's what I understand.
And what is the right concentration?
The right concentration only appears when there are conditions for it to arise. For example, that if there are right intellectual understanding, then there may be right concentration then.
And if your friends or anyone says that they should practice concentration or develop more concentration, what do you say, or how do you help them?
Normally they don't talk about concentrations. Only in the daily works, they say maybe yes, but the working environment and the setting up working is completely different and has nothing to do with Dhamma. My friends, almost no one take interest in Dhamma or Buddhism, so yes, I was not confronted a lot on these questions. But yes, if someone has the interest and had a conversations with me about concentrations, then yes, I will just try to take the conversation back to the reality now, the understanding now.
And what kind of concentration is there now?
There are all kinds of concentrations. I accompany each sita. Whatever we put, we think about, mostly thinking. So, for example, we're thinking about the computer or the screen or the voice, then there are concentrations on such hanati, such concept.
And that concentration, like now during the discussion, that concentration on different panyati, different ideas or impressions, kusala or akusala?
Kusala or akusala is difficult to tell, but theoretically it's mostly akusala, because once if we cannot make clear what is the intention or the manaskara behind, so it all depends on the motivations. If the motivation is about understanding the reality, maybe there are kusalas, but mostly if mostly the objects is about the concepts, mostly those will be accompanied with loba or diti, and then mostly it's akusala.
Right.
I think.
So even now, even while discussing Dhamma, moments of kusala chittas when there's wise reflection, but many moments of unwise reflection, thinking about the noise outside or what is seen on the computer screen and so on. So kusala and akusala concentration even now, and what moments of seeing and hearing, vipaka concentration. So different kinds of concentration, each one lasting for an instant and then gone with the chitta all day like that. But many more moments with attachment and ignorance than with kusala chitta most of the time. And you say that the concentration depends on the manasikara or the motivation. So what is manasikara?
Manasikara is only just one of the 7 universal chittasikas accompany every chitta. And I just only know that wherever there are akusala, it must be accompanied with Yoniso manasikaras. But that's very rare, and it's by conditions.
Right. So at every moment in life, there is the manasikara attending to the object, like you say, one of the 7 that arises with each chitta. And yes, when it's wise attending, when it's wholesome attending, then it's yoniso manasikara. But I think that the wholesome concentration, the awareness, the understanding, they all condition each other. So the chitta is the leader in experiencing the object, and it's conditioned by all the wholesome ceitasikas that condition it and support it and condition each other. So without sati, awareness, there couldn't be any kusala chitta, any kusala concentration. Manasikara is another. So many different factors conditioning it. And there can be wholesome concentration and wholesome awareness without understanding. But without understanding, how can it be known? How can it be developed? Impossible. So without understanding, it can never be known what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, and the wholesome states can never be developed. But I think
so not only manasikaras, but many others. Wholesome chittasikas must be there to condition each other.
Purifying the chitta, many others, the hiri and ottappa and so on. Okay.
I have one question. I read about Ayatana, and I understand that is a cause, a root, or association of reality. Like, for example, when seeing, there has to be visible object impinge on eye base, and so all whether we talk in Ayatana or Khanda or Dhatu is just referring to Paramattham, mean what is real. When they like Chitta is Mayatana, means Chitta is because Chitta is or Chitta is a condition for Cetasika, and Cetasika also is condition for Chitta. And like seeing consciousness, if there was not visible object, then seeing cannot arise, or eye base seeing cannot arise. But when they're saying that Chitta is Mayatana, like Chakku Vinyana is Mayatana for Chakku Pasatha and visible object, that I don't understand.
Because it's talking, when we read about the Ayatonas, it's about now, at this moment. So at a moment now of seeing, there has to be the meeting or the association with the visible object and the eye sense which it's impinged on. in order for there to be the seeing at this moment, which is, as you say, Manayatana, and there have to be the Chaitasikas, the Pasa and the Manasikara and the concentration and so on. So it's talking about, it's not saying that seeing is the condition for visible object or eye sense. It's talking about the meeting of those particular realities together at this very moment. If there is no seeing now, there's no meeting of the visible object, the eye sense, and the seeing. So it's the association at this very moment between those dhammas. As you say, no matter we're talking about ayatanas or khandhas or dhatus, they're all talking about paramattha dhammas, but it's a different emphasis. So when the Buddha talked about the ayatanas, it's particularly about each one as a meeting point to meet together at this moment.
Yeah, like but it has to relate it with chitta and Chaitasika, because for example, like let's say that when we are completely asleep, mean no knowing any sixth doorway, although like suppose we sleep in the air condition, maybe body sense is still there and the hot fire.
At the moment of when the bhavanga chittas arise in deep sleep, there's no experiencing of anything through the body sense. So there's
body sense that time is not ayatana.
So then there's only the meeting of the chitta and the chaitasikas, the manayatana and the dhammayatana, that moment. There's no seeing, there's no body consciousness at all. So only chitta and chaitasikas are the ayatanas at that moment of bhavanga.
It has to relate it to the nama dhamma also, because like what I've said, when there's like either hard, soft, or hot, heat or motion, contact, impinge on body senses, and then there's body consciousness to arise, then that is ayatana. But if there's no body consciousness, like for example when fallen completely asleep, it's not ayatana at that time.
And what about at a moment of seeing now? At the moment of seeing, is there any body consciousness ayatana or any hardness ayatana? No. So not just when asleep, but even at the moment of seeing, there is just the seeing, the visible object, the eye sense, and the chaitasikas associating together. So each one is just for a moment now.
And Sarah, what I think you talked with Anli about practice. I understand what you're trying to say, because like we understand that all our dhammas and our condition, nothing that can be done or control or do because when people we talk worldly, according to people, practice mean to do something, but in Buddha teaching also mean like practice the right path, but that's referring to Dhamma, that by anatta, not that someone to do like that or go sit under the tree or do like that. Yeah.
Main point, no matter we're talking about the path or the ayatanas or the dhatus, is that there are just dhammas arising by conditions and falling away instantly. Nothing that anyone can do or follow, or last week he mentioned about practice concentration. No one who can practice concentration or do anything, because each moment, each reality is conditioned.
Yeah, because some people may say that in Tipitaka Buddha say to do that, but that is not mean that they are I who do something, but by anatta Dhamma arise and perform its function.
Like Anli said, because he's been listening quite a while, it's just a description of different realities, that's all.
Sarah?
Hi, Maeve.
Hello. Actually, I wanted to ask Jonathan to just clarify something that you said just a little while ago, Jonathan, and it was about how the reality of sound cannot be known as a single moment, but the characteristic of sound can be known. And the question is, how do we define a characteristic? Is it a concept? So in other words, to be aware of a characteristic is to be aware of Nama. Could you maybe just talk a little bit about, we don't talk a lot about characteristics.
No.
Maybe not enough.
Right. So characteristic can refer to the unique characteristic of the reality. Every reality has a unique characteristic that distinguishes it from all other realities. And every reality also has the characteristics of impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and non-self that we do talk about quite a bit. But whether it's the former kind of characteristic or the common characteristics is not anything separate from the reality itself. So when we talk about understanding the characteristic, we refer to a moment where understanding takes the reality as object, but it's a question of what the understanding knows about the object, knows about the reality that is its object at that moment. So it's not something separate from the reality itself. It's just a level of, or an aspect of understanding the reality, whether it's a nama or a rupa. So sound has the characteristic of being that which is experienced by ear consciousness. Now that may sound a bit circular to say that, but it does pinpoint the essence of sound. It's what can be experienced by that consciousness.
May I add some point? Because when either like I understand what John is saying, that when Panya arises, it does not think about knowing nimitta or nimitta of reality or what, but because arising and falling of reality is so fast that we cannot know just one, but there is repetitively of Dhamma that arise and fall, and they have sign of that reality, and whether it's Satipatthana or Vipassanayana understands sign of reality, even that sign of reality is also the same characteristic of reality.
Yes, so you could also, and I think the texts do talk about the sign of the characteristic even. So, but that's perhaps a slight distraction, because your question is the characteristic, is it something separate from the reality, or is it just part of knowing the reality, right?
Yes, in terms of, I suppose, whether it is something that appears through the mind door or the sense door. So, I mean, we think in terms of sound, initially appearing through the sense door, and then, of course, there's thinking about what appears. So I think that
awareness and understanding, it just takes the reality, even though at the same time there is thinking about the sound, that thinking doesn't stop, but the awareness and understanding that arises contemporaneously, although it's different moments, of course, it's all happening so quickly, just takes the reality of the sound, and that is obviously through the mind door as its object.
It seems, just going back to your comment about how the individual moments, because they are so brief, of a reality cannot be known, but the characteristic can be. Does that mean that that unique characteristic that distinguishes hearing from seeing, or sound from visible object, is not a brief moment? If it can be known in the, and if it's not a brief moment, are we again talking about nimitta or something different?
Yes, I think that's right, because when understanding first begins, and I guess for a long, long time after that also, what we said about the single moment is understanding doesn't know a single moment. A single moment cannot be known as a single moment. Understanding takes the nimitta of the reality. So it's multiple moments. And so it can seem to have a duration, but it doesn't. But the reality, underlying reality, is it's all single moments, but not appearing as such because it's happening, as Ajahn said earlier. It has to be the nimitta because a single moment cannot be known. Everything appears as nimitta because only one of a reality cannot be the object of understanding. But they are ones that are the object of understanding, but it doesn't appear as a single object. It appears as having a duration. And it's the object that is it's the reality that is the object of understanding, but it's a question of what aspect of the reality appears to understanding, which characteristic, which characteristic.
And thank you, Jonathan. And just well, I suppose it's as much a reflection on my own thinking about difficulty, because we talk about the difficulty of understanding quite a lot. I suppose the idea of difficulty is because we want a different result. You know, it's like, this is difficult to understand because I'd like to understand.
I'd like to understand better than I do.
Yes.
Well, it also, because the Buddha himself described what he had come to understand as being deep and difficult to understand. So one is only really also describing the nature of the world as it really is, from the point of view of the worldling who's full of ignorance and wrong view.
But when there is understanding, then there is no idea of difficulty or overcoming difficulty or anything like that. There's just
that would be different moments if there was that kind of thinking. Would be different.
But when understanding grow, the understanding higher levels see the more profoundness and the heart of the Dhamma. That is not mean it's the more understanding grows, the more wisdom see the profoundness and the subtlety of Dhamma. Yeah.
Yes. Sure. Okay, thank you.
More understood as more subtle, more profound, more difficult. At the beginning, when people hear, they think maybe it's quite simple and they know all of this because they know that seeing sees what it sees and hearing hears what it hears, and it doesn't seem so difficult, but the more considering, the more subtle it is, and the more understanding there is of how much ignorance and wrong view has been accumulated.
I think of it as being elusive rather than difficult, because difficulty, thinking of it as being difficult, tends to imply, you know, like if I tried harder, then maybe it'd be clearer, but it's very elusive and subtle. I think that's
yes.
a good way to think of it.
Like when Buddha newly enlightened, he see at the level of Sammasambuddha the profoundness and the subtlety of Dhamma that he didn't think of teaching anyone, because that time it's his wisdom that sees how hard and profound it is.
I think it is a good distinction between the subtlety and the profundity of the teachings, as opposed to when we say difficult, then it's more like, oh, I'm having trouble understanding, which is different.
Janka, the Buddha used the word gambhira, which means something like deeply profound. How would you describe that word gambhira?
As you said, very deep and profound, because it's now here, but no understanding of its nature as it is yet. Is it not profound to understand that which arises and falls away? At the moment when it appears, it's gone. You cannot find other thing besides that which is now appearing to be known. The profoundness of such thing, it has to be that which is now appearing, does not appear as it is, arising and falling away in split seconds. And what is meant by just, like how tiny it is, dust, as rupa. And what about nama? Much more subtle. Now, if it can be known very soon, it's not profound, it's not subtle. But since it's now arising and falling away in split seconds, and where's the world? That which does not arise does not show up. But what is there? Just that, how tiny, how short, how brief it is, arising and falling away, can be directly experienced because it's so true, Ariya Satya. It is Dhamma, it is Satya Dhamma, and it would become Ariya Satya. Noble truth, never change its characteristic, its way as it is, arising and falling away, no more at all. Never to be found, never to arise again, never to return, never be the same. But now everything seems the same at the moment of looking at it. And last time I think that someone talks about patana, satipatthana. I don't know whether who should think about it.
Alan, I think so.
Would
Yeah, I
anyone
think both.
like to talk about it now?
Oh, please do, Ajahn. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say.
I think this was, Alan, your point, maybe.
Yeah, I was talking about the meaning of the word patana, what the actual word meant. I think that was the discussion last time. Yeah, I think that we had a good discussion about that. I don't think I've got any questions about that now. I particularly liked on a previous discussion the sentence, the source of the world is Dharma, reality. I found that very that was very useful, because no matter what situation or what our daily life is, whether with computers or with cars or with machines or technology, behind all of that are just dharmas, just realities, which there can be understanding of. So this idea of what the actual world is it's just Dharma, a reality, no matter what our situation. So I just found that was a very profound statement, if you like, or phrase. The source of the world is reality. Yeah, but no, I haven't got any questions as such.
But Ajahn Cup, if you would like, I would like to hear what you say about the word patthana. How would you describe that, or how do you understand that word?
Because I think that only the word cannot be understood about the reality. But when there is the understanding of each word, like the world, if there is nothing at all, can there be world, a world, any world, nothing? Impossible. But whenever there is, what is there arising? It has to arise, other it cannot be there. Whatever arises is the world. So the world is that which arises and falls away. Nothing. When there's nothing, not no world. But when there is something there arising and falling away. So actually what we take for the world is that which arises and falls away. But the arising and falling away does not appear as it is at that very moment. So we take the whole world as something permanent, people and things all the time. And we think that that is the world, the tree, the mountain, and everything. But actually, if nothing arises, there's no world. So what arises? That which experiences. Nobody can stop its arising because that is the nature which is conditioned to arise and to experience. No one can make it arise. No one can stop its arising, and no one can control it because even now it is conditioned to arise and falls away unknown. So whenever there is the reality which experiences, there must be the object which is experience. And the universal word, the term for that is aramana, taught by the Buddha. Use that word. So we learn that what is said for aramana is that which is known by an experiencing. No matter is that which is seen, that is heard, what is smelled, it arises and falls away. No matter that which experiences and that which is the object which is experienced. So we come to two terms, the nama, the citta, the vijnana, the chief of experiencing. Only experience. It cannot like or dislike. I cannot try or anything at all. It just arises to experience, clear, chief indriya of experiencing. The cetasik cannot experience as clear as much of that object, not understanding, just clear, to experience, very clear. Otherwise, who can tell whether it is the sea or the sky at the end of the horizon? See, that's why there must be the object which is experiences when there is the experiencing arises. As normally, usually, ordinary object. We use the word aramana. So we understand that. But what about the patthana? It's different from ordinary meaning because even is there, but no one understands it as that which just arises and falls away, no matter the citta, the experiencing, and the object or the rupa which cannot experience. So that which is the object, patthana, the foundation for understanding, to develop, to understand better and better, clearer and clearer, we use the word patthana. But it's the object, the object of the Buddha. In Thai, we use the word bida, who give birth to such understanding. Otherwise, there can never be such understanding of the truth of that which appears all day in life, anytime, whenever there is, no matter why one is asleep or not asleep. There must be that which experiences and the object. But when it's not the foundation for development of understanding, it's not patthana. That's why it has to be sati, that which is aware of that object with understanding, from intellectual understanding enough to understand when it's there. So whenever there is understanding directly of that object, which is now arises and falls away by conditions, it is patthana of sati, which condition panya to begin to understand it little by little until it's known as not self. So whenever there is patthana, it is the object of development. It can be samatha bhavana and vipassana bhavana, but when it's used as a patthana, sati patthana, it has to be the development of the path leading to enlightenment, the fourth Ariya Satya. So whether it's now aramana or patthana, even it's the same object. But when it's not the foundation for the development of panya, it's not patthana because it's not aware of it. And panya is not there, understand it directly. Conditioned by previous or the accumulation of intellectual understanding. Otherwise, how can there be right understanding of what one has heard at moment of touching, appearing, hardness there? No understanding. When there's no understanding, it's not patthana. But when it's the object, the foundation, the sati is there and panya is there, that object is patthana for the development of no self, anatta. So
John, just a moment ago, Tanajan, I thought you used the word patthana in relationship to samatha bhavana. That's incorrect. So patthana cannot be used in relationship to samatha bhavana.
Yes, you are right. Yeah. Just for vipassana bhavana, patthana.
Just okay. Thank you, Ajahn. I got a wee bit. I thought something. Perhaps I misheard
the slip of the tongue or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. Yeah, that's all right. That's clear, Ajahn.
Oh, thank you for clear this point. Because even samatha bhavana has sati, but not the panya, which understand the truth of the object.
Ajahn, so in samatha we have the word kammatthana.
Yes, only kammatthana, but not sati patthana.
Okay.
Because kamma is the gicca of panya at that level of samatha. Because without panya, there cannot be the development of samatha either. But how much, how strong, how fine, how very well it has developed to the degree of highest one, it cannot understand the truth. So it cannot be satipatthana, only kammatthana of samatha, tranquility only.
So satipatthana is actually have to mean direct awareness to the reality, understand.
That's why the Buddha used the term for satipatthana. Kayanupassana satipatthana, Vedananupassana satipatthana, Chittanupassana satipatthana, Dhammanupassana satipatthana. Covers all realities.
Yeah, so that word kammatthana relates literally is that word kamma and thana together. So it literally means action basis or the basis of action. And as Ajahn has described it, that's in relationship to development of samatha, development of samatha. So it's different to development of panya in relationship to satipatthana. So that word kamma, it's relating to the word kamma. It has those two words. So like any word, they can help lead to understanding, but we need to always flesh those words out so that we can have a better understanding of what they actually refer to, as Ajahn has just done.
In Thai language, we use the word kammatthana, kammatthana, for both But we have to classify there's samatha kammatthana and vipassana kammatthana, and vipassana kammatthana is satipatthana.
So in
Yeah, that's much clearer, John. Thank you.
So in this context, kamma has a different meaning than the word kamma that we are used to, which means deeds, chetana, right?
Developing.
Okay.
It's still the same word, kamma, or in Thai, as they say, gamma or gum. It's still the same word, but it's used, that word, as you're referring to there, you're referring to Chaitanya Chaitasika. That's just another context we have that where that word is used. So it can be used in many different contexts. And then, as I mentioned just earlier there, that we have to try and flesh those meanings out as to what is being referred to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and earlier Ajahn said that it also refers to the panya of the samatha kind, right? The work that is done with panya. Was that what you said, Ajahn?
Without panya, can there be peaceful moment to the degree that it can not have the sensuous object as object anymore?
It has sati and it has panya, but not panya which understands the truth of realities. So I think what she said was sati, but not panya which understands the truth, but it has to have panya which understands how to be calm at that moment, how the object and condition calm.
Because satipatthana means direct awareness with understanding to the actual reality appear at that moment.
Has to be. If it's not direct understanding of the reality, then it's not satipatthana. It's not the foundation of sati and panya.
So I just have a small question because we just talk about samatha. In the sutras, we usually have, we read what the Buddha says about the jhanas, and usually it goes like this, like quite secluded from sense pleasures and so on. And the monk enters in the first jhana. So what I'm wondering is, does that refer to the kusala chittas that are away from sense pleasures, or does that mean that does that refer to the chitta, the kusala chitta that should be away from lobha?
Has to be, because without seclusion from clinging to sense objects, there can never be the development of samatha bhavana, let alone the attainment of jhana. So it has to be with the development of that understanding and calmness and seclusion from clinging to sense objects, the viveka.
And Ajahn Cup, how would you answer Tom's question there?
Without understanding, can there be the moment to let go akusala? Because of the nivarana, the 5 nivarana is the hindrance for samatha bhavana, kamachanta nivarana. See, when there's no understanding of the moment which is kusala or akusala, how can there be more kusala? For example, is the clinging to sensuous object what is seen now? And who can develop samatha without seeing the danger of having more attachment and ignorance at any moment of seeing? It's there, but no way to letting go permanently, absolutely, like the path that Buddha taught, because at that time, no understanding of the path yet. But after understanding the path, who will develop samatha? Because at that moment, it's not the moment of understanding reality as ourselves, which is satipatthana, and what is more useful, more benefit, more precious. Because samatha cannot eradicate the idea of self or akusala at all. It just doesn't have such akusala moment as before. Because of understanding, seeing the danger of so much clinging to sensuous object in life.
Ajahn, I have a question related to this. I was wondering quite some time already. I was thinking that if there was not Buddha enlightenment, they cannot be even and understand that all reality are just Dhamma, no self. Like when Buddha say like, because other people can teach you to do good and all that, but not understanding that is Dhamma, that is impossible. That's only Buddha. So now I was thinking that when Samatha Pavana, when they said that they see harm of Lopa, but it does not understand Lopa as Lopa that Dhamma, and does not see it that is just a Dhamma, not self, right? It cannot be, because without Buddha teaching.
Mm-hmm. What about metta? See, everyone knows that it is a benefit to have metta.
But without Buddha
teaching, but not understanding that it's not me who has such.
Yes, it will take that I that who have metta without, if never, no one ever hear Buddha teaching, if there's no enlightenment of him. So that's why I was thinking that when the panya that sees the benefit of kusala and the harm of akusala,
only that level, no understanding the danger of not understanding the truth of it.
Yes. But I think like because Buddha teach to understand Dhamma, and when understand Dhamma also understanding also Dhamma, understand that is just Dhamma. So when we say that Panya see harm of akusala and see the benefit of kusala, it also understand that is a Dhamma, right? Not
for samatha, no understanding of Dhamma, only seeing the danger of clinging to sensuous subject.
Okay. So because understanding Dhamma, only Buddha teaching only.
Mm-hmm. Because even wholesomeness is not known as not self when there's no understanding of the teachings of the Buddha.
Like other people, and if any religion or anyone say, oh, do good, don't do bad, but nothing to do with understanding.
What about the sanya, remembering at that moment, feeling at that moment, not known as no one, no self at all?
Like because even I'm just saying for everyone, even like if before I have heard Dhamma, I think that there's me and all that who do good and don't do bad, but nothing to do with understanding. If there's no enlightenment of Buddha, so it's not even Panya that understand the characteristic of Dhamma.
Without hearing the teachings, no one can know the truth of this moment at all, as ourselves. Just see what is good and what is bad, that's all. But it's I and thing all the time.
But Ajahn, what my question is that even if Panya see that the good as good, also see good as Dhamma also, right? That's what I'm curious about. And bad as bad, but bad also as Dhamma, because Panya sees, understand it is Dhamma.
That is not the understanding of Dhamma. It's just understanding what is good. I do this, I don't do that. See? Doing this is not good, doing that is good. But who, what? See? No understanding.
And Thambak, just getting back to your question about seclusion from sensual pleasure, I think the sensual pleasure there just means any attachment through any of the sense doors. And of course, the only way there can be seclusion from that is by kusala citta. There can never be a physical seclusion from attachment through the body sense, for example. Wherever one is, no matter how remote, there's always wanting to be comfortable or too hot, too cold, and attachment and aversion. So if we think of sensual pleasure in sense pleasures in terms of any attachment rather than the gross sort of entertainment and watching TV and all that sort of thing, then it's obvious, I think, that it has to be sujita rather than some kind of physical seclusion.
Not the story or the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, Tom, I think we can say that in the Buddha's time, there were people who had incredibly refined understandings of kusala, not necessarily satipatthana, obviously, but I'm thinking when the Buddha became enlightened, the first two people he thought of were his two teachers, Alarika Lama and Uddaka Ramaputta. Their whole teaching was based on this very refined understanding of the dangers of lopa or dangers of attachment. So I can easily imagine why the Buddha thought of those two people first, because they had such a refined understanding. I don't think today people have got anywhere near the understanding that's necessary for that kind of development. I don't think they can even imagine it. It was very, very refined, and it is a very refined understanding to know the dangers of lopa and develop the panya that is able to move away from that, which those two teachers had passed on to the Buddha. But he had realized himself, even under their guidance, that this was not what he was looking for. And he, because of his own accumulated panya, he moved on and tried and pursued other pathways until his subsequent enlightenment. So I think it's safe to say that when we read those texts, it always will have to depend upon what we understand by those words. I think what Jonathan said is very relevant, but also I feel that it's very, very different time. We're now well over 2,500 years later, and I think it's so easy to have a misunderstanding about development at any level sometimes, especially in levels of kusala. Development of panya is very, very subtle and takes great patience and commitment, in a sense, to enable more and more understanding. It just takes time. So when I look at those texts and I know exactly what you are referring to, it'll always come back to, well, what was the Buddha saying there, and who was he speaking to, and what context was he speaking? How much understanding do those people have? All those factors will be relevant, rather than when we read them, we often put our layer of understanding upon them, which can be misleading or sometimes wrong.
And Harji, I think Sundar has touched upon something that you were asking a minute ago, because the person outside the Buddha's dispensation who develops samatha to the level of jhana knows the moments of very subtle agusala from the moments of kusala, knows the difference between them to a very high degree, but doesn't know realities as realities.
Like I understand, like that's why I want, like, those who have wrong view, like even they also can attain samatha, but no understanding. What I was curious is that it's only Buddha, like when we say that see harm of lopa, it's, what do you mean by seeing harm of that? It's just like, can you briefly explain like samatha? Because I think that when panya arises, I think panya also understand Dhamma as Dhamma. So I'm a bit confused. I'm lost.
Well, if kusala moments are known from agusala moments, then one is obviously beneficial and the other is obviously harmful, because it's not conducive to bringing not conducive to the welfare of oneself or others. And also, I don't know to what extent, but of course, obviously, one leads to rebirth in heavenly planes and the other leads to rebirth in unpleasant planes. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that that's an aspect that the people who are developing samatha would have in mind.
For example, okay, suppose Buddha teach to see harm of kusala and see value of kusala, and Panya understand readily. That's why Panya can eradicate the bad and develop the good. But Buddha won't be like other people. Oh, just simply say do good and don't do bad. That's not Buddha. Buddha only teach to understand. Also, right?
That's correct. So when the Buddha teaches to develop or to do good and avoid evil and purify the mind, it's understood that he's talking about the development of insight.
To understand, because other will just simply say do good, don't do bad. But Buddha teach to understand, only Sammasambuddha.
And we read about different kinds of seclusion, viveka, but the last kind, upadi viveka, the seclusion from clinging that leads to the end of life in samsara, can only be developed through the understanding of realities as they are. So those who develop samatha, there has to be the development of seclusion, detachment from clinging to sense object for the citta to become more and more calm to attain jhana. But there could never be the seclusion from the clinging to realities as self, the understanding of dhammas as not self. And so there cannot ever be the understanding of dhamma as dhamma. So there can be understanding of the danger of attachment, but it's still my attachment. It's not the understanding of attachment as a dhamma.
Samatha see harm of attachment and anger, but the only one who can teach to see the danger of ignorance is Sammasambuddha by understanding Dhamma.
Alberto or Tadao or Akil, I saw Akil then. Oh, Alberto, go ahead.
Sawadee Krap, Ajahn. You were talking in the beginning about Sanya makes known. I'm not sure I understood what you were talking about. Can you explain a bit more about how Sanya...
Okay. Sanya Vipallasa, right? Take that for self, Atta Sanya, Sukha Sanya, Atta Sanya, Nitya Sanya, see, all Sanya. When it's Nitya, it's something. It doesn't fall away, it's still there. So, not the Sanya which understand the Anitya, because it's perversion. It is Vipallasa, taking that which is not permanent to be permanent. So it's something, and something is Panyati. That's not just contact, see. But what about Sanya? Otherwise, there will not be the word Sanya Vipallasa. For take that which is not self as self, that which is not Sukha as Sukha, and that which is not Anicca as Nicca. As something which is permanent, which is object of Sukha. Just want to experience, just want to see no matter what, better than not see, being blind. So Sanya just marks and remembers, make that object known as something all the time, attas. It is something by sanya. Not by phassa, okay. Not by vedana, not by other realities.
Yes.
Otherwise, there cannot be the understanding of that characteristic which marks as not self in the day. Let go 5 khandhas, not just 1, 2, or 3, all 5s. Little by little, gradually, by conditions. So Panya knows what is still there as I. And the Sanya Vipallasa can be absolutely eradicated at moment of enlightenment, stage by stage. But still, it marks, it's made known that which is there as Kun Nina, or Kun Sarah, Kun Jonathan, Kun Sukin, me, by Sanya. But that moment without akusala, wrong understanding anymore, knows what is there as it is. So there is Banyati from Sanya, which is kusala or akusala or kiriya citta. When that person becomes an arhata.
In the case of Sotapanna, no atasanya, but
no
still sanya still makes still concepts, right?
There can be or other akusala, but not vichikicha and the wrong understanding, michatiti anymore. 2 of the anusya is completely, absolutely eradicated. No doubt about this moment, the object which appears as is only that which can be seen. And how come to be such thing like flower, bed, purse, jewels? It is sanya, but not as vipallasa, with wrong view anymore. So there can be still akusala sanya, but not with wrong understanding, not with michatiti and doubt anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you,
Ajahn. And Alberto, sanya, as Ajahn said there, sanya, literally it makes known. It's sort of often, sometimes the Pali words have that word knowledge built into it. It makes known, or we use the word, sometimes it's translated as it remembers, but as Ajahn has pointed out, it can be a distorted memory in the case of sanya vipallasa, which is translated in different ways, but distortion of what the reality is really is. We mistake it for something else, for something, which is vipallasa, which is a different, so it's given a different slant on the word sanya there. So, but the Cetasika sanya remembers or makes known the object, and usually we remember it with incorrectly. So, as you know, development of the Dhamma is about understanding the reality as it is rather than something.
And actually it's sanya vipallasa at almost every moment, because whenever akusala citta arises, it is sanya vipallasa at those moments. So all the moments now with just ignorance or ordinary common attachment, sanya vipallasa is there marking in an unwholesome way.
And actually too, Alberto, the word vipallasa means it turns it completely upside down. That word vipallasa, literally means to turn completely upside down, to turn it completely the wrong way. So that word can lead us to understand it's pointing to another reality, which is not inverted. In other words, a more correct understanding rather than understanding in this completely upside down way. And this is what the word vipallasa literally means. You're seeing reality upside down. So you're seeing it in a very distorted way.
Yeah, that's the way we live, upside down. Thank you.
Only the arahat has no more sanya vipallasa, so it shows how very subtle it can be, just very subtle clinging. Those moments still sanya vipallasa, even though no wrong understanding of any kind or no doubt of any kind. No clinging to sense objects, but still sanya vipallasa.
Anyone else have any question you want to ask?
Akil, is there anything you would like to bring up? Because you've been patiently listening all this time.
And we were thinking about the pati pati, ma'am. As pati pati is written, it's a practice. Ma'am, what practice, ma'am? What is referring to, ma'am?
What do you understand by pati pati, Akil?
Ma'am, it's written down as a practice, ma'am. But what practice?
So we have to understand from the beginning, like now, when there's discussion and reflection about what is Dhamma, what is reality now, and we discuss that seeing now is a Dhamma which sees, and that which is seen, the visible object, is a Dhamma, that which is seen. Just different kinds of nama and rupa dhammas, no one there. This is when there is the beginning of wise considering that there are just dhammas, no one, no thing there. This is the beginning of understanding. Without the wise reflection about the different dhammas, how can the understanding develop? How can there be the wise considering about the truth? And if there is no wise considering about the truth, if we have not heard about these dhammas, if there has been no considering and development of understanding of these dhammas, how can there be the satipatthana that was mentioned earlier, the direct understanding of the seeing as seeing the reality, not just the idea about it? How can there be the direct understanding of the visible object, just that which is seen when it is experienced now, not the concept about it? So in order for there to be the direct understanding, there has to be a lot of hearing and listening and wise considering and reflecting about the dhammas which can experience an object, the nama dhammas, and the rupa dhammas that cannot experience anything, because as they were just saying, the idea of self is so strong. The sanya vipallasa, the perversion of sanya, taking it for something or someone, is so very strong. So the wise considering about the reality at this moment is the beginning of understanding, the pariyatti understanding, the beginning to understand what life is at this very moment. Not just remembering lots of names and terms and details and numbers, but beginning to really understand that it is just visible object that's seen now. That is the world at this moment. Nothing else is seen at all. And through the wise considering, the understanding develops until it can directly understand what appears now, what is life at this moment. And that is the pati-pati understanding. The pati-pati understanding is the same as satipatthana. It's the direct understanding of the reality that appears in life at this very moment. Just the Dhamma as the Dhamma, no one there, no thing there. So it's the direct understanding of realities that are dharmas, no one who can do anything, no one who can practice anything, no one who can select an object, because it is the understanding that each dharma is conditioned. It arises by its own conditions. It doesn't arise because someone would like to concentrate or practice or do something. So pati-pati is the opposite of what people think of when they talk about practicing concentration or practicing being aware or observing what is experienced in the body now, for example. Those are examples of the wrong path, wrong understanding, wrong concentration, wrong sati, wrong everything, as the Buddha described, wrong practice. So pati-pati is the understanding of, the direct understanding of what we are discussing now about the dharmas that make up life at this very moment. So at the moment of touching now, what is experienced? Is it a leg or a table, or is it just hardness, just tangible object? Beginning to become familiar with these objects that, as Ajahn mentioned, are the Buddha's objects, because they are the realities that can be the objects of pati-pati or satipatthana. Is the way that understanding gradually develops until it directly understands them as they are. Sometimes she refers to the practice disease. This is when there is the idea that I can practice and I can do, and this will lead to the right path. But actually, it just takes one down the wrong path. So forget about following a practice or practicing anything, and consider and understand more about the truth of the different realities that make up life at this very moment.
And so it may be more helpful to think of pati-pati as meaning direct understanding rather than practice, which is how it's usually translated. But the word practice isn't actually the word pati-pati doesn't mean, as far as I understand it, practice, but practice is used as a translation for it. So, but it really refers essentially to direct understanding, that is, approaching the object, the realities that are the object of understanding.
So sir, pati-pati is the analytical thinking?
Is the understanding of hardness now that is touched, is it analytical, or is it understanding what is experienced at this moment?
Ma'am, it is what is experienced at this moment, ma'am.
Yes, so it's not a matter of just thinking and working out the story, but the beginning to understand what appears at this moment, so that that understanding can develop to directly understand it eventually, but not by analysis. So it's not theory or theoretical understanding. Pati-pati is the opposite of theory. It's the direct understanding through the development of panya, through the development of satipatthana.
When you talk about analytical knowledge, it presupposes that there is something that is being analyzed, right? So you can't analyze something without, in the first place, supposing whatever the something is. And that is not the same as what we mean by direct understanding, because in the Buddha's teaching, understanding arises by conditions, not by virtue of taking or selecting an object to be understood.
Usually people have it completely the wrong way around. They think that there can be pati-pati, and then afterwards there can be some intellectual understanding or theory. But nothing is known, because how do they know what is reality? So what they think is being experienced, such as sensations in the body or concentrating on this or that, has nothing to do with the understanding of dhammas at all. It's just the lobha and the idea of self, that focusing on breath or this or that. But actually there's no understanding. So the development of understanding has to begin with the wise consideration of what is experiencing now and what is experienced now. It has to begin by understanding these dhammas are not self, not in anyone's control.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Kun Sundra, please let us know the meaning of pati in Pali.
Well, Ajahn, I know that we've talked about this before, and you know the word pati in Pali can mean proximity or close to or touching, and pati is the attainment of that. So we can literally translate it as the close or the proximate touching of the reality that appears. That is, as we know, that is not how it's normally translated, but we can break it down into those two words. So the touching or the proximity to the object in this case, and then pati is the attainment of that, like in the word sampatti, which is we see quite often in Pali, or when it's often referred to as the Buddha in that first phrase when we talk about pati. Pati is often a very common word. So it usually means attainment of, or the success of having that, having whatever it is, that object in this case.
So now, does anyone reach or approach any reality?
No, John, we know that it's not so. So we know that it's the experience of that nama Dhamma at that particular time. We can say that's the experience of that reality which appears at that time.
Even it's there now, no understanding, right? It means
mostly
that
Ajahn, yes.
Can there be attain, approach, or reach that object because of not understanding what is it, where is it? See, so it has to be panya only of that degree that can approach or reach the truth of that object which is there, not just from intellectual understanding only, because we know that now there is seeing and there is the object which is seen. How to approach or attain the truth of that, see? And I think that pati is just one only, right? Properly, the actual one, just that one, not the other. That's why when there are many things around, there cannot be the precise understanding of the truth of anyone at all. But when only one approach that, pati, just only that, not the other. And pati is to reach, to approach, to attain with understanding of that object, only one object. Pati is just, as you said, see, only one, just that one. For example, hardness now. Does anyone approach the truth of it, which arises and falls away? So
we usually
it's not pati yet, but it can be pati when there is more than intellectual understanding, which can condition instantly, uncontrollable, no expectation, because conditions are right. just to be aware or reach or attain that object with understanding. Just only one at a time. And that is patipatti, only one. Approach that only one. While there are so many things now, see, what is that? Patipatti is the moment of approaching the truth of it with understanding. So now, who approach the truth of that which appears? Sometime, some moment, or not yet, depending on conditions. So when we discuss or when we have the understanding of the truth, then all that gone. So life goes on as usual, no trouble, because it has to be its way. That's why less clinging, wanting something to be known from hearing. See, lopa is always there. And what can patipatti reach? Only that rupa which is there to be known as a self. So patipatti is the gicca, because they are the 12 round of Ariya Satya, right?
Yeah, that's true, Ajahn.
And the Kittayana, the second truth, the second round of the 4 is there. To know that it has to be only this, not the other thing. It's here, it's now. But what can approach its truth? It's panya and direct awareness at that very moment. So one can understand the difference between pariyatti and patipatti and pativeda. Is this according to Pali term?
Yeah, that's how I understand it, Ajahn. Increasingly, I didn't always used to see it that way, but it's becoming a lot clearer to me now. And if we look at the word, pariyatti, that is the word, again, it's the word pari means all around or thorough. And I believe that the whole word comes from the word, the root of the word is ap, which is something close to our English word aptitude. So it's a thorough aptitude or understanding about the teachings, which will lead to the pariyatti. And of course, the patiweda literally is the touching of knowledge, or the proximity or the connection would probably be a better word in the sense. The connection to knowledge would be a reasonable, or connection to understanding would be a reasonable translation of the word patiweda.
I think we need to continue the discussion next time. Sawadika, Ajahn, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.